Hello! Here I review movies, and today's film is The Imaginary. It's an animated fantasy adventure film from Netflix about an imaginary boy called Rudger. Rudger is friends with a real girl named Amanda, and together they go on adventures until a violent stranger separates them. The story is based on a book by A.F. Harold and was adapted into a screenplay by Yoshiaki Nishimura. Yoshiyuki Momos directed the film, which was released in several languages. I saw the English version, which starred Louis Reg Buchanan, Evie Keisel, Hayley Atwell, Sky Katz, and Jeremy Swift. As a film, it heavily reminds me of The Boy and the Heron, which was released earlier this year, addressing similar topics and using a familiar style. For positives, it has a strong visual journey, amazing music, some great performances, and an exciting story. The story is filled with imaginative worlds with absurd rules that make for fantastic visual sequences and interesting world building. Basically, anytime the Imaginaries are on screen, you can be sure that something fun is going to happen. There's also a lot of deep emotions layered into the story and a ton of great lessons for the audience to take in. The character journeys that Rudger, Emily, Amanda, and Lizzie go through are filled with wonders and horrors that will get your blood pumping. From the cast, we get a lot of great standout performances like Louis Reg Buchanan as Rudger, Evie Keisel as Amanda, Hayley Atwell as Lizzie, and Jeremy Swift as Mr. Bunting. Evie Keisel and Hayley Atwell don't get quite as much screen time as the other two, but do a wonderful job of Amanda and her mother's emotional journeys. Amanda is a young girl suffering after the death of her father, and she goes through some tough moments. She puts on a brave face for the world, but finds herself breaking down with Rudger. Atwell plays Lizzie, her mother, and goes through a few tough scenes as well. She has at least one big cry moment, as well as a scene where she gets to show off quite a bit of bravery. Atwell puts a lot of emotion and energy into her performance and really makes it stick. Even I was a little teary-eyed during her performance in the umbrella scene. Jeremy Swift as Mr. Bunting presents an enigmatic and ruthless villain. He goes out of his way to toy with Rudger and his friends, and Swift delivers some incredibly cold lines. He provides a solid villain and does a good job of creating a hateable character. Finally, Louis Reg Buchanan plays Rudger. He's a hopeful but somewhat naive boy that desperately wants to reunite with Amanda. He shows a lot of bravery and goes through a roller coaster of emotions during his journey. Reg Buchanan plays them all exceptionally well. He did an especially good job of the emotional speeches toward the end. The visual journey takes place in England during the real-world sections and in an ever-changing expanse for the imagination moments. They use the medium to great effect, creating wondrous sights and sounds for the audience to enjoy. The journey is clear and colorful, the movement is clean and crisp, and the artwork is easy on the eyes. Each character also has a unique design that ends up leading to some dramatic little interactions, like when the hippo gets stuck in the house because he's too fat for the door. It's a bittersweet moment that creates a ton of tension. For standout moments, you have a ton of dark scenes of Mr. Bunting catching up with Rudger and trying to eat him. There's also a few battle sequences where Rudger and his friends attempt to fight back against Mr. Bunting. Finally, there's magical moments where human characters use their imagination to alter the landscape around them. They can make magical creatures, create new plants, and raise mountains from the earth. All of it is standout, and the visual journey as a whole is excellent. Sound-wise, they use orchestral and jazz-style instrumentals that attempt to follow the emotional journey and give the film a bit of a sad and tragic feel. They work wonders in supporting the story and often mesh perfectly with the scenery to create cinematic moments. One of my favorites was when Emily appears in the skies of London to help Rudger. It creates this awesome feeling of relief in the audience, and she gets to have a grand entry onto the scene. The tracks aren't the most memorable, but they do a good job of creating melancholic tones and a wonderful job of drawing out emotion. On the negative side of things, the story is a bit too nonsensical at different points, and the voice acting isn't always well done. With this story, the problem comes from how long Mr. Bunting takes to eat Rudger. It's an incredibly slow process that is difficult to get through, and yet Mr. Bunting takes zero precautions when doing it and constantly interrupts himself. Rudger would be dead if Mr. Bunting didn't stop frequently. The story doesn't do a good job of interrupting him, and even has him use faster and more lethal methods against other characters. So it really doesn't make sense that he would get in his own way so often. Some of it can be explained by his personality, but they take things too far and it becomes story-breaking. As for the voice acting, there are several instances where they used lazy and annoying voices for the Imaginaries, and a couple where the actors are clearly trying to fit the dialogue to the animation work. The lazy voices were repetitive and kind of annoying. They had a lot of high-pitched, whiny voices and super low-pitched grumble voices. They weren't too distracting, but the line delivery was rarely good. It has no emotion and sounds flat. There were also times when it was clear that Kal Penn was trying to make lines fit by speeding up and slowing down the dialogue. It was a bit jarring, even though he did a decent job of the role. Personally, I thought the film was incredibly well done, even with its little flaws. The story is a tearjerker that gives inspiration. The visuals are fantastically creative and fun, and the music does a wonderful job of bringing out emotion. On top of all of that, you had fantastic performances from most of the cast. It wasn't the most original film, but it was very entertaining. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.